right. I hope everyone can see my screen. This is a new platform for me, the StreamYard, but it looks pretty cool. It's pretty similar to Zoom. So I'm Doyle. I'm the Education and Engagement Curator for White Labs here in Asheville, North Carolina. And been having a lot of fun doing some organizing beer and food pairing events over the past couple of years. I mean, obviously we've taken a brief hiatus on doing in-person events. But I thought it'd be really cool to share with everybody, a handful of the events that I've done and some of the things that I've learned and tips and tricks and things to think about if, your brewery or brew pub wants to get into doing beer pairing events, or if you've done them and kind of want to, maybe hear from somebody else about what we're doing differently. So what we'll look at today is I'm going to share some of the events that we've done here in Asheville. And we're going to look at, the pros and the cons of hosting beer and food pairing events, both in-house, if you have a kitchen or a restaurant, so you're a brew pub or a restaurant that makes your own beer, or you are a taproom or a brewery that doesn't have a kitchen and you are, working with outside vendors, other, purveyors. They're both really cool in their own ways, but they definitely have their, their upsides and their downsides and things that you need to think about for sure. We're going to look at, some considerations. So we're going to look at audiences and what that looks like, logistics, really the nuts and bolts of putting on these kind of events. Budgeting. Got to look at a budget. We don't know what to put the price tag on for the ticket price if you don't know what your costs are. So you got to really kind of consider all that. Marketing endeavors. What kind of marketing have we done and what have we found that has been really useful and helpful, and some things that haven't really been so useful or helpful. And then also we're going to touch on virtual events because obviously we've been doing, White Labs has been doing virtual events for a while, for most of the last year, and we've learned some things and we've had a lot of fun for sure. But I didn't put on this slide, I didn't put on the bullets, but looking ahead, let's think about what we're going to be doing coming out of not being able to do events like this. So this is kind of what we're going to look at today. Our main food and beer pairing events at White Labs, we call them the Fermented Pairing Series. Fermentation is the core of what we do at White Labs, obviously. So we really wanted to showcase not only our beers that we have in our White Labs brewing company, but we also wanted to showcase foods that we do in our restaurant, White Labs Kitchen and Tap. And so we really developed this kitchen and tap to be sort of, an R&D kitchen, a way for us to use some of our beer yeast and some bacteria and things like that, and do our own in-house fermented foods. So we really wanted to showcase that, but we really wanted to do it with our beer, of course, because I don't know how many of you know that we do our split batching, was where we'll, make a main base beer and then we will split it into different fermenters. We used to do 4 of each beer, 4 different strains, but we've kind of condensed it down to 2. It's just a little bit more variety. You can have more beers on tap, really. So what we do is we'll make a, core beer, a main beer, say our Hansen wheat ale, and we'll split it up and we'll use, WLP 300, our Hefeweizen ale yeast, and our 380, our Hefeweizen 4 ale yeast. And it really kind of showcases the way the strains really affect the flavor and the aroma and the appearance of the beer. So it's a really cool way for us to showcase that and our food. So some of these fermented pairing series that we did, the first one really was kind of a yeast and fermentation 101. It was a real basic, you're already pairing, you just don't realize it kind of a talk about how, pizza toppings are good and go with pizzas for a reason. They play off of each other and they work with each other. So that first one was definitely not a class per se, but really kind of a lot of basic information about yeast. What is yeast? What is fermentation? Getting people, that base knowledge of understanding, what we do at White Labs, and some basic food and beer pairing concepts. So really after that first volume, then we kind of did little deeper dives, but we wanted to have fun themes each time. We did them usually every 6 weeks or so, just to give us plenty of time to really promote the events. We did a cheese and beer dinner, which was really awesome, with Looking Glass Creamery during Asheville Beer Week 2 years ago, or gosh, maybe it was 3 years ago. We actually did a film. We screened Fermented, which is a documentary that showcased food cultures, fermented food cultures from around the world. And that was a really cool event, because what we did was, during the film, we would bring out the courses that they were showing in the film. So when they were talking about sourdough bread, we had in-house made sourdough bread with cultured butter, and just even simple little things like that to tie in what people were watching was really, really cool. And we had the room set up kind of like in these smaller table settings. So, 4 to 6 people at a table instead of a classroom style. Normally the room that we use is called the culture room, and it's our classroom. So it's normally set up like a classroom. But for that, film dinner, we obviously had the lights down low. We had a more intimate setting, 4 to 6 people at tables. And it was really, really, really nice. And it was fun. It was logistically a little difficult to pull off, because we were presenting the courses, and we had to have it timed just right, and that is tricky, because our culture room's upstairs, our kitchen and tap is downstairs. And it was basically, just good communication, really tight communication with our team downstairs, our back of the house downstairs, and, our servers that were helping us bring up the food, and me. So we had to, make sure we were texting each other, hey, 10 minutes away for the scallops, and that kind of thing. So that was really fun, but it was really, it had to be timed just right. Other things that we've done, we did a charcuterie, because obviously we do our own in-house ferments, sweet treats. Our pastry chef was a really good way to showcase her skills, and people really, really, really enjoy that. Something about, pastries and beer, you think it wouldn't work, but it does every time. People really want it. We actually did it twice. We did a wintertime treats event as well, just because it was so popular. People loved it. And it's usually not just me up there talking about, a topic. It's usually like I would have the pastry chef come out, and she would talk about how she made her desserts and what went into them, and her thought process. And we kind of share the whole idea of how we came up with these pairing dishes together. So people really like to see the makers, the people that are actually, sourcing the ingredients and cooking the ingredients and serving it. And they get a real, real kick out of that, like being able to see the chef. People love that, We did one called Preserving the Bounty of the Season, and it was in the fall. And it was basically all kinds of ways you can preserve food. So we had all kinds of things, from jams, jellies, salt curing, brining, obviously fermentation. And so we kind of really took this big look at historic ways to preserve food, modern ways to preserve food, and global ways that people are preserving food. And we, tasted things that had been preserved, and then gave people tips and tricks on how to do it at home. And that's another thing that really people really enjoy is learning something. I would say our most popular fermented pairing series would be our pizza pairing. We did one called Deconstructed Pizza Party. And that was where we literally brought the mixer out and the ingredients, and we had dough balls already made too that people could take home. We showed the audience how we make our pizza dough, which we use beer yeast, obviously. Yeah, WLP 518, our Opshog Kvaik ale yeast. We use that in our pizza dough, and people really, really get a kick of learning something new. They may already know how to make pizza dough, but they've never done it with liquid beer yeast before. And so that's something that that was very, very popular. We did that a couple times. We had a CBD brunch, actually. We worked with an outside company, Blue Ridge Hemp Company, and we chatted, and I thought, hey, it would be really cool to work together. We want to do something. And so we did a CBD brunch where all the food was infused with biomass that they gave us. So the sauces, the marinades, the glazes, and all these things, was made with local, using local hemp company products. So that was a kick too. And that was nice because the owner came out and was talking about their business, and a lot of people had questions, and it was really, really fun and interesting, and a departure from what we normally do, for sure. That was definitely, it was pretty wild. And everybody was very chill by the end of the afternoon. And it was really cool. I had a really good time. Beyond the Bean, we worked with a local coffee roasting company. And again, the same thing. Our chefs utilized green, so unroasted beans and some things, and they used roasted coffee beans. We had a coffee beer, obviously, and that went with the fourth course, the last course, the dessert course, which was like a rich, chocolate dessert, and it was fantastic. All of them have been really, really great. We've never had really anybody say this was the worst one ever. They always said, what are you guys going to do next? It's always fun to think of new ideas and collaborations. I think this is one thing that really, for me, I had a really good time. Oh, I forgot to talk about Bakers and Brewers, a historic connection too. That was with Owl Bakery. So Old World of Anne, we did a historic connection of bakers and brewers, and we talked about the history of food, of bread and beer, and that was cool. So when you're doing your in-house events, there's, like I mentioned earlier, there's definitely pros and there's cons. What are the things of having your own in-house event is that you get to showcase your unique menu, your chefs, your talent, your space, even, like if you have a beautiful space that you can have a large group or small groups, that's like a really cool thing too. It gives opportunity for people who have never been to your brewery, your brew house, your event, your space, to come and check it out and see your people and see what you do and hear your talent. You get to keep all the revenue. You don't have to split it. You're working for your internal company. So, and you have more control over the content. You're the one that is coming up with the concept. Your staff is collaborating and working together, and you're, thinking about your menu, and you're thinking about what you want to show the people if you have a presentation or if you have a class. So you really get to control every single aspect of it. Marketing and everything. Some of the cons of having an in-house event would be, you do have the higher overhead. You have more labor. You have all the food costs and all the marketing efforts, and scheduling staff it can be tricky. If you have your event on a Friday night, you're going to be stretched really, really thin. We never had events like these fermented pairing series on a Friday or Saturday night. It would just be too much. You have regular service going on. The kitchen and tap is packed. There's a waiting list, there's a line of folks waiting to get inside. They're not going to have the bandwidth to be able to put your your food together, your event together for, help out with that. So really Wednesday nights and Thursday nights seem to work really well for us. And it's kind of pre-weekend going out, and it's also nice too. You can have it on a slow night that maybe you're trying to generate some revenue. If you don't have much going on a Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday night or even a Thursday, you've done trivia, you've done, other kinds of events where you have maybe dog adoption events, or you have, painting events or things like that. You probably know that like those nights are nice to bring in, boost some sales a little bit and get some more people in the door. But just think about that. If you're going to do it on a busy night, you make sure you have staff, because it could get really crazy. And you can see this one picture. I think this is the one that we did from this is one course from that, the dinner that we did with the documentary. So, our team is working real hard to get everything out at the same time. Just really consider that too when you're making a plan for doing your in-house event. The outside vendors that I've worked with here in Asheville, we've worked at Looking Glass Creamery for that cheese and beer pairing event, which was, wildly popular. And it was nice because I had the head cheesemaker, Sean Stanley, actually come out, and he talked about how he makes each one of these cheeses that we had presented. And again, like I mentioned, people love to hear from experts. They love to hear from the makers themselves. I've worked with Fermenty, Meg Chamberlain. She's a powerhouse woman. She does all kinds of amazing fermented food products, kimchi and all kinds of different krauts, like really cool carrot, ginger krauts and things like that. Excuse me. So yeah, she came out and talked about her farm that she grows the food on and the process, and also talked about like unique ways to use fermented food products. Like she talked about, like, you would never think about putting sauerkraut into a chocolate cupcake, but we did it and it was fantastic. And people really love to see, again, the maker, but also hear of a unique recipe or try it even. It's in front of them and they're trying it and they're like, this is amazing. This is great. Pair it with the right beer, and it's an experience. It's not just, let's go do something, that sounds interesting, but when they're there and they're seeing it and they're tasting it and they're immersed in it, it's a really cool thing to see, I mentioned Owl Bakery, Maya Surdam. She actually is a awesome baker here for Owl, but she's also a PhD in history. So, and her real focus is, women in beer making. And was really cool to have her come out. And we talked about like the history of alewives and women making beer in the Middle Ages, and how that kind of shifted to men making beer and women becoming bakers more, when baking used to be more of a male, profession. So it was really cool to have a true expert, to come out. She's a PhD in history. She knows what she's talking about. People really love that, We worked with Penny Cup Coffee Company. Like I said, we infused a whole bunch of food with their beans and their coffee. And we had Wes come out, and he talked about how they source their beans, and where they get their beans, and how things are roasted, and the history of coffee. It was really cool. And the Blue Ridge Hemp Company, again, that CBD brunch was fantastic and very unique and very different, very well received. So you can always really think outside of the box. You don't have to just do cheese and beer. You can go anywhere really with it. Some of the things that you should consider is your audience. Obviously we get beer geeks at White Labs. We get people that are home brewers and professional brewers, and the people that make kombucha and cider at home, and they're really into fermentation. We get foodies. We're here in Asheville. People really want to do something that's food centric, that is outside of your regular dining experience. you know. And then I definitely saw a smattering of people just looking for something different, looking for, we're in Asheville, we're going to do a date night, or we're visiting our kids, or we're visiting our parents, or, we're in town for the week and I saw this thing online and I thought it would be really cool. But I also definitely get a lot of locals too who are like, I've never been here before. I'm looking for something different. So yeah, that's our primary audience. And I'm gotta say, I do see a lot of familiar faces at these events, the Fermented Pairing Series events. I mean, there's a handful of people that have come to every single one. So that is something that I really, really, I love it because it's like they become friends, they're not just customers or clients or audiences. They're I know them and I know what they like and I listen to them too. And we chat about, hey, it would be cool. It'd be cool if you did a thing on, and that was how the charcuterie came about. It was like, it'd be really cool if we could have some, charcuterie. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, we'll do that. So it is nice to have these regulars that come, but it's also nice to have familiar faces. Like I said, it gives you a chance to show your space, to show your talents, to show your beer. And you can see this picture here. This was during the CBD brunch. I had salt lamps out on the tables because, Asheville. I thought that'd be fun. But yeah, we had this set up in these long communal style tables. So I had taken the classroom tables and just set them up in a different configuration and put long tablecloths on them. So that's a logistic piece that you might want to think about. You need to think about, not might, you need to make sure that everybody fits, that everybody has room, elbow room. There's room for servers to get around, to actually, put plates down or refill glasses or things like that. So make sure that you take stock of your event space. Think about how you want people to interact. And so I'm a huge fan of doing the long communal tables. Excuse me, except, instead of a classroom style seating, I did one. The first one I did was a classroom style seating, and I actually had a difficult time, getting in and out and making sure that everybody had their beers and their water and then their food. And I just found that it was better for me and space, the culture room, to have either long communal tables or shorter 4 to 6 people tables, And there's a couple different ways you could go about getting the beers out. You can pour the beers in advance. Like you see in this picture, I did all the beers. So, you have all of your tasters in front of you, ready to go. Usually from my experience, the patrons are waiting. They're there at 6 o'clock. They are there. So they're outside the door. They're all queued up. I'm pouring all the beers. I usually have an assistant. I have somebody help me. It's really difficult to do these events totally by yourself. I would recommend at least one other person helping you out. You don't want the beers to be flat by the time everybody gets to their third course. So getting the beers poured quickly, getting the people in and seated down quickly, and kind of getting going with the program is my number one tip. Make sure everything's ready to go at 6 o'clock. When the ticket says 6 o'clock, people should be getting in and sitting down at 6 o'clock. So you can pour the beers in advance. You can pour the beer as you go. I haven't had any problems with any kind of flavor issues or mouthfeel issues by pouring 4 or 5 tasters, 5 minutes before, 5-10 minutes before the event. I've never had any issues with beer the quality not being there. That said, you can pour the beers as you go too. I've done it that way too. If I have, a couple extra hands available, the patrons don't mind either way. If the beers are in front of them, that's fine. If the beers are getting poured as they go, I haven't had any negative feedback either way. I think it just really depends on what you can do, what you want to do, what you're comfortable with doing. But from my experience, I haven't had any negative experience feedback. You can put the food all out at once. So sometimes we'll do a pairing where we'll do an event where all of the pairings are on one plate. So I usually will, we set it up. So pairing number 1 is at 12 o'clock on the plate. Pairing number 2 is at 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, etc. And talk through it, with the audience, make sure they understand, so we're going to start. Pairing number 1 is at the top of your plate, and this is what it is. We're going to pair it with beer number 1, which is, usually I put them left to right, like you're reading a book. So pairing number 1 is going to be that first beer, and then just jump right into it. Why did we choose this pairing? What are the ingredients? Why do we think this works? If there is some kind of an educational presentation going on, which I always did, I usually wait a few minutes till everybody maybe not has finished their first pairing, but are almost finished, and then get into a visual presentation. I found that, and then I learned this, I should tell you this, I didn't know this the first time. I learned this probably like the second or third time. I would observe people, and I noticed that when I'm up there talking about an idea or presentation, giving them, say I'm talking about the history of coffee, it's an old, it's got a really interesting story. It's an old story of how coffee came about. They want to hear it, but they also want to enjoy their food that's in front of them. So, it's like hard to enjoy your pickled, whatever, pickled egg with kimchi on the side when you're trying to look at something on a screen. So it's definitely nice to just give people a moment to kind of settle in, enjoy their first pairing, the hows and the whys of this first pairing. Go into your discussion, what you want to talk about, what you're presenting, and then we usually do a little bit of feedback. So what did everybody think of that first pairing? What did you like? What did you not like? And it's nice to kind of get people engaged and feel from the beginning that they are a part of this. It's not just sitting there in a class. You're actually encouraged to interact. Very interactive. So you could do that. You could put food all out at once, direct people of how it's going to look, how the layout looks, or you can bring out the food out in courses. Like I mentioned before, if you bring out food in courses, you got to make sure that you have very good communication with your food serving team, because you don't want a lot of lag time either. But if you're doing a presentation, you can definitely always interject some of that interaction time too, some questions and things like that. You can stall. It's not like you have to have everything down to the second, but just think about it. Use a checklist, create a checklist. And I will show you an example of my checklist that I use for my day of event. I'm also going to share with you my outline. It's a template that I use when I'm outlining the event weeks in advance. But make sure you create a checklist and go through the checklist, because you'll forget something, or as I will. So, it's like little things that you don't think about. If you have a checklist, it just makes your life easier and you just get used to it, right? And then you want to think about your budget. How many people are going to be working this event? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got to think about that, because all of these, things that you need to think about in budget, that's going into your consideration of what you're going to charge. You can't, charge somebody $15 for a ticket if it costs you $15. At least you shouldn't. You're not going to make any money. Unless it depends on what you're trying to do, what your goal is. If you're just trying to, make a community connection, that's fine. But if you really want to make it a little lucrative, you're going to want to think about your labor, your beer budget, which if you're a brew pub, you're a brewery, your beer budget is going to be probably the lowest thing, I would imagine. Your food, got to think about your ingredients, if you're going to have really expensive wild foraged mushrooms in one of your dishes, that's probably going to be up there. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, than a spring salad. So definitely think about your food, your marketing endeavors, a lot of which you guys are probably already doing already. There's a lot of great marketing tools that we all know about. And then think about decor. I like to have flowers on the table. I just think it's nice. I think it looks pretty. It looks nice. It makes it more of a special event. I like to do little tea light, battery operated tea lights or fairy lights or something, just to make it a little bit more special than just I'm sitting in a classroom having delicious food. This is my outline template that I use when I'm doing these things. It's pretty basic. I try to do this 2 months in advance, or if I even have an idea for an event that I know I want to do in the wintertime, I'm going to create this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to put the event name, Wintertime Treats. It's going to be in December. It's going to be on a Wednesday. So, all these things that you want to just, all the little nuts and bolts and the details, what time is it? I like to put down an estimated, how many could we fit in this room? And how many do we actually? So this is an outline. This is an outline, but it's also kind of a working document. So once all these things are filled in, I share them with the team that I'm working with, because this is usually a Google document. So I can share all of the ideas, and they can share the ideas and add in, and we can edit together, so we can work on this together. But I usually put for my estimated how many seats I have, how many people can I fit in this space, and then I can keep a running tab through my ticketing platform of how many tickets are selling. So it's a really good way for everybody involved in the event can see it. If I have any outside vendors, I'm going to put that in there. If I have people that are actually going to come in and speak, that's going to be in there. And then I'm going to list the beer pairings. So I usually do four pairings, 4 beers. Sometimes I'll do 2 beers. Often I'll do 2 beers with one of those pairings. So like I mentioned, that Hansen wheat ale, where I show them the split batch. I'll often showcase one of those 2. So they'll have usually 5 tasters. Any items that you need? Like, what are you going to need for this? Do you need tablecloths? You're going to do flowers. Make sure you get silverware. Water. You really need water at the table. Water glasses. Like, you don't think about this stuff, but it's all little details that really just need to all be thought about before the day of the event, or you're going to be running around, and you don't want that. You want to be relaxed. You want to enjoy yourself too, right? And then I usually have an event timeline. We need to get this done by this date. We need to make sure that we have the tickets selling. We used to use brown paper tickets. Now we use Eventbrite. It just works better for us. I need to make sure I create that Eventbrite event first. Then I'm going to think about looping in the marketing team, and we're going to come up with a plan of marketing, different social media posts and stuff like that. So really just a good timeline can just make sure you can just see it, when things are supposed to be done, and benchmarks that you need to hit just to make sure that this event, people know about it, and just to make it smoother running. This is my fermented pairing series day of checklist. I make sure that all the tables and chairs are set up, obviously clean tablecloths. So one of my things that I need to think about is, did I take the tablecloths to the cleaners, or take them home and clean them, or whatever? Got to make sure they're clean. Make sure you have all the things you need. I put the presentation on the computer. If I'm doing presentation, make sure that it's all set up and ready to go. The thermostat is at a comfortable temperature. I don't want people coming in and it's 50 degrees and it's freezing and they're shivering, or it's sweltering hot and they're sweating. Make sure that's set up. I set it up early in the day just to make sure it's set. It's going to be fine all night. Make sure that we have the silverware, the plates, glasses, tasters set up, and the water flasks. Very important. Little things like that you don't think are important, but it's what makes or breaks the event. Little things like having it freezing cold in the room can be a real turnoff, and people remember that stuff, So just make sure that you think about what your audience is going to be. They don't want to wait outside too long. They want to be comfortable. They want to have water. So just think about these things. When we're talking about marketing these events, we obviously, like I mentioned, we use an event ticketing system. Eventbrite works for us pretty well. and then we create a Facebook event, and then our marketing team takes care of all the social media posts and really boosts them if necessary. So we use all of them. Yeah, we take advantage of any and all social media outlets that we have. And then table tents, so actual printed cards like you see that, printed out, put in a plastic table stand, and that way, your bartenders, your beer servers can talk it up, chat about it and say, people say, oh, what is this going on? Oh yeah, check it out. It's a fermented pairing series. It's a beer pairing dinner we do. Tickets are here. All the information's on there, You could put a QR code on there, which we'll start doing. And we've been doing it for a little bit now, and people really like it. It's easy to use, and it could go straight to your ticketing system. So yeah, I think something physical that people can see. If they're sitting at a table, it's there. If they're at the bar, it's there. If you have screens above your bar, or you have your Untapped going on, throw that slide on there. Throw that that graphic on there. And so people can really see it. So you can do your own in-house marketing, obviously, put it on a chalkboard, have a chalkboard artist do it, do the rendering of your event. So any kind of visual marketing is always obviously very catchy. And we have an email newsletter. So when people sign up for events or they sign up for a tour, there's an opportunity for them to give us their email address, and we let them know, hey, this will only be used if you want us to tell you about, upcoming events or upcoming classes or things like that. So utilize the email newsletter if you have it, for sure. And then, there's other ways to market. You can pay to have them put on, larger formats. It just depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to have an intimate dinner where you have 30 people or 40 people, probably don't need a radio ad. But I don't know, just like you might. It just depends on really what you want to do. But these are the things that we've used that have worked for us. So, we haven't been able to do in-person dinners or anything like that for over a year now. We started doing an online event we call Challenge Your Taste Buds. And that's been, people really, really, really love it because you can basically sit at home and have a similar experience. So obviously it's online, and what happens is they'll sign up for the event. I will get their packages together, so their beers together, and have it labeled with the instructions to sign on to SampleOx. SampleOx is the app that we use. It's the same folks that brought you Draft Lab. So Lindsay Barr, created this software program for sensory panels and for sensory programs. But the SampleOx is really kind of community faced. It's more public facing. And it's a way for people to really kind of geek out about the beer a little bit, because you really get to dive in and choose the aromas and the flavors and the appearance that you think you're perceiving. So if you're, trying, like in this example here, it looks like maybe it's an IPA because we see pineapple, mango, guava, tropical, so it's a way for people to kind of really deep dive and take a deeper dive into the beers using this app, because it gives you these little sliders and buttons that you can choose. So it's really fun to use. People have a really good time using it. The few ones that we did, I just kind of laid out here just to show you, for example, what we did. We did in October, we did a mixed 4-pack. And so that was a hazy IPA and Pilsner. And then we also, so it was 2 hazy IPAs and 2 Pilsners, 10-degree Plato Pilsners. And then we also had an Imperial Stout growler. So that was $25, which is a really, really good deal, So, I mean, I think this is, we tried to do it. We're like, let's keep it affordable. Let's keep it accessible. This is our first one. Let's see how it goes. Let's see if people want to do this. And people really, really liked it. I definitely encourage them to do this with a friend, do this with a couple friends, because we're going to be and I made sure that it said that on the description in Eventbrite. Please do this with a friend or bring a friend along, because we're going to be having a growler as well. So that was a good one. The next one we did a mix 4-pack, and we did 4 Tabor IPAs, and then we had something called an R&D tart, and that was in a crowler. So it was just something a little different. We wanted to keep things a little different, so they weren't just static and stale and were the same thing. Kind of like what we did with the fermented pairing series. Each one was different. It was, unique. And so we really wanted to keep with that spirit of having something different and unique. So we tried something new. We tried it with the crowler, and we kept that again at a $25 price point, and just to make sure it was very accessible. This is January. People were still not, didn't have a ton of things going on, or nobody was going out. You couldn't go out. So this was really, I think it was a really, really fun way for people to enjoy our Tabor IPAs and try something new, the R&D tart, which is fun. And so R&D, research and development. So it was a sour beer that we were experimenting with, and people love being a part of an experiment. They really do. They get the inside scoop of something. So if you have something that isn't really, it's a small batch, or it's experimental, or it's, or like I said, R&D, people really like it. They like to feel like they're special. They're on the inside. They're in the know. They're trying something no one else has tried. So that's another approach, is doing something that isn't, you can't normally get on tap. And then we did a mixed 4-pack with snacks. So we had a little snack box put together, and we had our dark lagers and our better haze ahead. So, 2 different dark lagers and 2 different hazy IPAs plus some snacks, bumped up that cost because of the food cost. And so it was doubled, and I did see a smaller audience for that. And I think maybe it was just the price point. That was probably it, because we got fantastic feedback. It was probably the best feedback we got, was like, having the snacks was awesome. Everybody really, really loved it. So that is something to think about. If you can still do the food, but you got to really be very mindful of your price. Because if it's not an in-person event, it's hard for people a lot of people are kind of turned off by a higher price point. So the Sample Ox app really made these events very interactive and gamified, because you get these scores based on your rating. So we have gone through these beers prior, and with what we see is the aroma and the flavor and the appearance and all that. And then the participants are doing the exact same thing on their phone, and they're basically they can see their scores, and they can see how their ratings rate up with the experts, So it's kind of this challenge your taste buds against the experts. And people really, really liked it. And it was a good way for us to be interactive and say, after everybody's gone through with the Sample Ox app and gone through the beers, and for us to go and have some dialogue around that. Like, well, I don't know if it was more cut grass or if it was more lemongrass, and and kind of like have this debate. I also, for that last one, I did breakout rooms. I was doing these events using Zoom, and you can use breakout rooms with Zoom. I think you have to have not the free tier, but I think if it's the next tier up, the paid tier, which I think everybody has, that's one of the options. You could go through and click on your breakout rooms and set up breakout rooms prior to the event even. So you have a list of, say, 20 people. You can break them out into 3 different groups into different breakout rooms. Zoom has plenty of tutorials on how to do this, and once you do it, you'll get the hang of it. You should practice it before you actually do the event, but once you do it, you'll see it's not terribly difficult, and people really liked it. because then they got to chat with each other in different rooms. I would pose a question to them. Like I would say, you know, do you like sour beers? Why or why not? Discuss in your breakout room. Send people to breakout rooms. They would talk about their own personal, I like sours because of this, but I don't like sours because of this, or, you know, whatever your question is, or your topic for engagement and for your conversations, just to get people to do something different. I think they really, really liked it, and they felt engaged, and they felt like they're not just, again, sitting and taking a class. They're doing something fun. And Zoom, you know, backgrounds are really fun. I had background where it looked like I was in the brew house in our San Diego, you know, White Labs Brewing Co. in the brew house. And then I had backgrounds where I was like, you know, there's just beer bubbles behind me, and you can do all kinds of things. So really, that's kind of fun too, to do different backgrounds and breakout rooms. So there's other ways that you can use this this online, you know, engaging people. I think that we'll still probably do it a couple more times. It's really good when you have a new release to do these. If you have a new canned beer release, people can come pick up their can to go cans. And if you have mix packs, even better, then they can go home, sit on the comfort of their couch and tune in and be engaged and have a good time, and not have to worry about driving home or, you know, whatever. So I found that the online events were really well received. But I know people are really they're looking forward to getting back to doing in-person things and want to see each other again. And I know I do. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to some patio events. So that's what we're working on now. Is I'm wrapping my mind around doing some patio series this summer, just because it's just so nice to be outside in the evening. And so stay tuned for that. We'll be doing more fermented pairing series, and probably having them outside for a few months until it gets, you know, it's chilly around here. But basically, you know, the gist of my talk today was just to let you guys know that, you know, food and beer pairing events, it's a really cool, fun way to show your offerings, what you do, your talent and your expertise. And it's a really great way to engage a community. People feel like, I know your brand, I know who you are, I'm comfortable in your space, and you guys know what you're talking about, and everything is quality. And when people have a good time and they feel like they've learned something, that's our goal, and it's my goal. So that's my organizing beer and food pairing events talk today. I'm going to flip over and see if anybody has any questions here. I think I have the chat box. There we go. Anybody have any questions about organizing events? Oh, okay. Thanks, Andrew. Or comments? Oh, I've got a question. Let's see the question. Chat with the host and other guests. Oh, I see. I had to go over to comments. The White Labs Kitchen Tap experience in Asheville is incredibly unique. Yeah, it is for sure. Sorry about that. I couldn't see the comments. You'll have a more educated audience in most cases. Yeah. But do you find that sample ox is effective for a broad audience or just the niche consumer? That's a good question. Broad audience, maybe not so much, but maybe not niche consumers either, though. I feel like once somebody sees how to use sample ox, like once somebody actually shows you, like, this is how you use it. Real quick, I can pull it up. Yeah, so I have my sample ox, and then you're really like showing them. So you take the slider and you slide it to get to the color of the beer. Once somebody shows you how to use it, it's, oh, I get it. It's like fun and interactive. Once they see it, it's not difficult. So I wouldn't say it's niche consumer. I would say it's your moderate beer geek to super beer geek, but not only professional brewers, you know what I'm saying, or like home brewers for sure. Like, you'd be surprised. A lot of people are pretty savvy about craft beer. At least here in Nashville they are. But like you said, we do have a more educated audience. I think it's all just showing people how to use the app. Once you show them, they get it, and it's fun. Yes. Yeah, the servers, and I'm doing it. So when I run the Challenger taste buds, so the question is, are your servers doing that education, or are you using a video or step-by-step guide on how to use? When we create the Eventbrite ticket, on it under like things to know, what you need to know is you're going to need to download this app. Check it out here. And so we do have a little link to what is sample ox and how do you use it. So that's already on from the minute people are looking at, I'm thinking about doing this event. Oh, they're using this app. Oh, check it out. So they do see that. So it's not just like, wait, what? We have to use an app? So they know that they have to download the sample ox app. And we do recommend checking it out first. But then when I start the event, I walk them through. This is how we use sample ox. Because you have to remember, these online events, they're not even seeing servers or bartenders. They're coming in, they're picking up their 4-packs that I have put aside in the cooler for them, and they're going home. And then they're tuning in to the Zoom meeting, and then they're using the app. Yeah. So Josh says, thanks. I enjoy sample ox as a consumer, but our team isn't 100% on board for our customer base. Yeah, it's a great app. I really like using it, and once you've done, and as I mentioned, we have a lot of familiar faces that come to these events. There are people that are like, oh yeah, I know how to use this now. We've done this already twice before, so yeah. Try using it. I think it's really cool. And you don't have to use it for just an event. You could use it for a beer that you have on tap. But yeah, there is that learning curve of teaching people how to use it, but it's really simple to use once somebody's shown you. So then I have another question. Super interesting, helpful. Thanks, Erin. Any recommendations for breweries looking to partner with local restaurants, so the food would not be done in-house, things that we should keep in mind? Well, definitely, if you're identify who you want to work with, say, for instance, you're like, I don't know where you're located, but I want to work with Tupelo Honey. So then reach out to the person, find somebody at Tupelo Honey to work, hey, we're thinking about, we're doing this beer dinner. Would love to work with you guys. So a conversation first, right? And then you need to think about, just like I showed you my checklist, not my day off checklist, but my outline. Identify your date first. So identify who you want to work with, have a conversation, maybe bring them over to the brewery, have a couple of beers, chat about what food you think would go really good with these beers, and set a date. And then I usually meet 1 or 2 more times with outside vendors, just to make sure things are coming along smoothly. We give a portion of the ticket price for outside vendors. So for instance, $50 ticket, we would give $10 per ticket to an outside vendor because they're bringing, like Fermenti, she's bringing in her fermented foods that our folks were using, and she's talking to the audience. So she gets a cut of the ticket price. So that is something to think about in your budgeting of this event. If you want to partner with a local restaurant, you need to think about, well, there's also legalities too, because there are things you can't, I don't know all of the ALE laws or the ABC laws, but I know that there are some specific laws around breweries partnering with other restaurants or other vendors and cross promotions. I know that cross promotions in some cases can be a no-no. I think it just depends. Like I said, I'm not an expert on this. There are plenty of resources though that I don't know where you're located, but we have a lot of like the Asheville Brewers Alliance. Leah Reynes is awesome. She's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to like giving breweries some guidance, like what can we do legally. So you do need to think about like legalities and partnering with somebody too. So think about that. I don't know. I don't know all the ins and outs of the legalities. Yeah. Oh, you're in New Jersey. Yeah. So make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's when it comes to legality, because you don't want an ALE agent or somebody coming in and shutting down your event. That would be terrible. It would be embarrassing. And it just would not be a good look, So make sure that you get the legalities. Also think about your budget, because you're going to have to give you don't have to, but it's almost like a contract. So when you have a conversation, try to nail down all the details. And if you feel like you need to have a written contract, I haven't had to do that. They were all verbal contracts, handshakes, and, because these are all people that I know pretty much. So if you are not comfortable with some being vague, I would have something written then, for sure. I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question. But yeah, it's cool because then you don't have it's not all on you to have a kitchen. You can partner with, a local hot dog guy and have cool hot dog pairings. You can do anything you want. You can keep it as simple as you want, you can get as fancy as you want. It just really depends on what you want that ticket price to be. Oh, you're welcome, Erin. Any more questions? Comments? Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate everyone showing up and listening to me share my talk. Hope you all have a great day. Bye.